A parent's worst nightmare realized on the campus of a Seattle school.
Kill my baby.
6 months after a Seattle teen's murder, his grieving father shares his frustration with the investigation. A 3-month-old baby pistol-whipped and kidnapped.
The defendant poses a risk not only to himself but to the mother and the child that he threatened to kill.
Prosecutors lay out the charges against a Tacoma man arrested after a harrowing police chase. A vicious robbery spree with customers and store clerks caught in the middle. The new tool that helped police put an end to an 18-hour rampage. Tonight in the Spotlight.
The Spotlight brought to you by Beacon Plumbing.
It's been 6 months since a Garfield High School student was shot to death on campus. 17-year-old Amarr Murphy Payne was gunned down while trying to break up a fight at lunchtime in the school's parking lot. The suspect has not been caught, even though his shooting was captured on video. So good evening, I'm David Rose, and thank you for joining us for the Spotlight. I sat down with Amarr's father, speaking out for the first time on television because he feels like Seattle police could be doing more to solve the case. He wants to be part of the solution, though, a catalyst, if you will, to get somebody in the Garfield Bulldogs community to come forward with information and help get justice for Amarr.
Amarr felt that right at that day. Something was in the back of his head and said, don't let that happen. And he stepped up and he stood on it. We need some fearless people in our community.
The shooting was caught on video, but that's not enough for charges. Deputy Chief Eric Barton says they need a witness to identify the suspect. He says a number of people saw the incident.
If Amarr was on the other end and he knew something, and I knew this kid and I cared about this family and all that type of stuff, I would walk my son into the Seattle Police Department and I would have him tell those police whatever that needs to be said.
Amarr grew up playing football. When he was injured his freshman year, Aaron bought him a home recording studio.
Because he was losing his identity because he couldn't have football no more.
All you gotta do is say yes and then I'm on my way.
His music was just starting to take off. The high school band even performed one of his songs. Amarr was named Student of the Month twice at Garfield and was planning to play football again this year.
He was just going back to the weight room. That morning he left, I said, man, okay, look at you. His muscles were showing. He was like, yeah, you know. So he was locking back in with football, and I believe he was going to have a phenomenal senior season.
He says Amarr was the glue in their family, a star from the day he was born. Aaron wants to be strong and brave like his son was, but it's hard.
Kill my baby.
This father's heartbreak being felt by more and more families when it comes to teens killing teens.
Your kid is navigating a city that kids are getting murdered in, and they're not solving it. They're not even trying, if you ask me.
Last year, juvenile murder suspects in Washington state had approximately a 25% chance of getting away with it, 1 out of every 4 cases. But back in 2019, there was only a 5% chance suspected kid killers would escape justice. After Amarr's murder came the speeches and outrage.
My heart is absolutely crushed. It's broken and it bleeds.
This is not the first shooting at Garfield, and these kids deserve better.
The school has added violence interrupters who patrol outside, but Aaron says it's just a start. This is the most high-profile murder. People ask me about it every week and ask why there isn't an arrest. What do you think police need?
I think the police need to really classify it as a school shooting. Someone walked up off of the sidewalk into a school and killed a 17-year-old kid.
Aaron grew up in the Central District, coached football for years at Garfield, and wonders if he knows the suspect or if he even went to school with his parents. That gnawing feeling that the killer could be right in front of him has almost been too much for the family. Amarr's mom gave us this statement that she signed from a heavy-hearted, grieving mother. Sharika Walker McCall says, "My son was at school where he was supposed to be, and this should have never happened. Just like Amarr stood up for justice that day, who will stand up for him now? I beg of you to hear a mother's cry for her only child to get some justice." You're not out running around the streets looking for the guy. You probably wanted to.
Definitely. And I'm going to be real and say that was the battle. But at the same time, that doesn't honor Amarr.
Instead, he went to rehab and strengthened his faith in God.
He wouldn't want me to continue to keep getting high, keep getting drunk, keep clouding my mind to be able to go to with those thoughts. He would want me to battle those.
Every day now for Aaron is a reset, putting his faith before fear.
We're going to get the justice. We're going to show the people that it can happen, and then we're going to grow from there.
Again, Seattle police say they need a witness to come forward. If Aaron's words were not enough motivation, there is a financial incentive. Amarr's grandmother, myself, and Crime Stoppers of Puget Sound are each offering a $1,000 cash reward. So it brings the total cash reward to $3,000 if you have any information that leads to an arrest and charge filed in this case. You can submit a tip through the P3 Tips app on your cell phone or call 1-800-222-TIPS. Detectives say a man found murdered near Enumclaw on Halloween was an innocent victim at the wrong place at the wrong time. This is 52-year-old Hans Hansen. Troopers say he was shot twice. His body was found by his vehicle along State Route 410, and whoever pulled the trigger has not been caught. I talked via Zoom with two of his sons, Jack and Luke Hansen. They flew out from Pennsylvania as soon as they heard and helped put up banners near the crime scene, asking for the public's help to solve the case. They say besides their grief, they're in shock that something like this could happen, especially to someone as well-trained in self-defense like their dad.
We knew him as a bit of a badass. He was just like, he was a guy's guy. He was like an absolute dude. He was someone who wasn't scared of anything. He taught us both self-defense. He taught us how to use firearms. He always taught us to defend ourselves in any situation, to be alert, not put yourself in situations where you're not able to defend yourself, and then for him to be out on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere, from what we know, completely unarmed. And it's like the absolute worst case scenario of what he told us our whole lives could happen.
He was an outdoorsman. He was always outside. Yeah. He would be hiking all the time. He loved being outside and taking me and Jack outside.
Jack and Luke say their dad always gave back, from handing out money and clothes to helping drivers in need. They were able to get their dad's pocket knives back and some of his belongings, but they had to travel back home without what they really wanted, answers as to why their father was killed. If you have any information on a suspect or dash cam video from October 28th to the 31st along State Route 410 in Enumclaw, you can upload it to the Washington State Patrol by using this QR code you see there on your screen. You can also submit an anonymous tip to Crime Stoppers through the P3 Tips app or at p3tips.com. A Tacoma man facing a slew of charges after prosecutors say he pistol whipped his 3-month-old son and then led police on a chase. And wait till you see how he acted in court. As the Spotlight's Alejandro Guzman reports, the baby was inside the car during the pursuit, and so was the suspect's girlfriend, begging to be let go.
I call this matter into the record, State of Washington versus Brian Ojeda Montefar.
25-year-old Brian Ojeda Montefar walked in, scanning the courtroom, appearing to search for his family.
One count of assault of a child in the second degree, one count of assault in the second degree, one count of kidnapping in the first degree.
Throughout the hearing, Ojeda Montefar appeared unconcerned with what was happening. He stood up, trying to leave a little too early, as his gaze focused on the gallery. He was unaware as officers pointed him to sit back down.
Your Honor, we have received the charging documents from the state. We would waive formal reading. Under pleas of not guilty.
Court documents say the threat started when Ojeda Montefar started drinking. He allegedly pointed a gun at his girlfriend's face before pistol whipping their son in the head. Fearing for their safety, his girlfriend tried to leave, but he stopped them, saying, "I'm not going back to jail." Finally, he caved to take the baby to the hospital, but during the ride, Ojeda Montefar allegedly started threatening to kill them and began driving recklessly. Documents say his girlfriend was able to call 911 and hid her phone in the baby carrier. Dispatchers heard a woman screaming, "Let me out. I need to go to the hospital." When officers tracked down Ojeda Montefar near central Tacoma, he took off when he spotted the officers' marked cars. Officers tried 2 pit maneuvers. The second one was successful, and he was arrested.
The defendant has 9 cases with warrant activity. The state believes that unless high bail is placed in this case, the defendant poses a risk not only to himself but to the mother and the child that he threatened to kill.
For the Spotlight, I'm Alejandra Guzman.
The judge sided with prosecutors and set his bail at $300,000. He's also not allowed to have contact with his girlfriend or their son, and he's not allowed to own any guns. He's facing felony domestic violence charges, including assault of a child with a firearm and kidnapping. Seattle police are hoping for tips on this convenience store robbery caught on camera. It happened in the early morning hours of November 23rd at the 7-Eleven along Southwest Avalon Way in West Seattle. Surveillance video shows 4 masked suspects smashing open cash registers, one of them armed with a long gun. That suspect found the clerk in a freezer area and forced him at gunpoint to open the money bin. Police say they got away with a grand total of $150 and some Swisher Sweets. If you have any information on the identities of these suspects, call the Seattle Police Violent Crimes Tip Line at 206-233-5000. A hit-and-run crash was caught on camera near Seattle's Waterfront, and police are hoping that you can identify the driver. Take a look. A dark green Dodge Neon struck a man on First Avenue at Pike Street. The victim told police the driver then got out of the car and started yelling at him in Spanish. The suspect then drove off, cutting into oncoming traffic to make a turn and get away. The Neon's trunk appeared to be held together with a bungee cord. This happened on November 1st while the victim was visiting Seattle for the UW-USC game. Instead of going to that game, he almost lost his foot. He had to have emergency surgery. If you recognize the driver or you know where police can find that car, please submit a tip to Crime Stoppers. A trio of brazen robbers armed with rifles ripping off local stores for cash and tobacco products. Now they're all facing charges, and police say one of the suspects is just 14 years old. Their crime spree came to an end in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood. Spotlight's Frankie Thompson tells us how a new resource helped bring them to justice.
A crew of serial robbers. The suspects, 2 men ages 19 and 21, plus a 14-year-old boy.
Handgun and long gun used.
Armed with rifles, ripping off 6 convenience stores and gas stations, all within 18 hours in the Seattle metro.
They just had the same suspects hit a new Shell station in White Center,
terrorizing customers and store clerks. Their violent spree brought to an end in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood. Police with their guns drawn during each suspect's arrest.
Go back inside!
Just how were officers able to track down these 3 bandits on the run? Well, police had help from an eye in the sky.
Lay down.
The King County Sheriff's Office Air Support Unit watching the suspect's getaway car down below from Tacoma to Seattle to help stop the robbers before they struck again.
All right, he's stopping here at 1121 Harvard Ave. We got 2 running to the north.
But who knows if this pursuit would have been possible without the Air Support Unit's latest resource. This is the new Bell 407 GXI, known as Guardian 1 at the Sheriff's Office. The Air Support Unit unveiling their new helicopter in October.
Now with 2 helicopters of like capability, like performance, we could even have 2 helicopters operating at one time. It's going to be a huge boost in our ability to serve the citizens.
Pilot Anthony Mullinex says since the launch of the new Guardian 1, his unit has responded to countless calls for help, some of those calls resulting in 13 captures, including the 3 robbery suspects, one of the first big cases using the chopper.
Getting the ability for us to really quickly get somewhere, find lost people. We found lost children. We found lost elderly people. We've stopped and rescued folks. And we catch a lot of bad guys.
But catching bad guys was proving to be more difficult prior to receiving the new Bell. For decades, the Sheriff's Office relied on an older, slower helicopter from the Vietnam era for all of its calls.
We retired the Old Lady, which was the 1970s patrol helicopter that had 25,000 hours on it, and it was ready to retire.
We were finding a lot of things wrong with it, and also because of its age, like spare parts for some of the electrical components were simply not available. And so we were living on a hope and prayer.
Mullinex says repairs for the old Bell 206 were totaling more than the aircraft was actually worth. Not to mention it limited the number of pilots on board due to weight restrictions, and it lacked equipment that would have enhanced the safety of the crew and the safety of the public. So while retiring the Old Lady, the Air Unit hit the campaign trail in 2023, asking Washington state legislators to support King County's proposal to fund a new helicopter.
This was a big ask. This is a multi-million-dollar piece of equipment that's going to serve for maybe up to a decade.
Their big ask to legislators were backed up by several law enforcement agencies that call on the Air Support Unit for help, from local departments to Washington State Patrol, even the FBI. They all penned letters to the state to support funding for the new helicopter, and state lawmakers answered the call with a stamp of approval. $6 million later, the Bell 407 is now the second Guardian 1 helicopter on fleet at the Sheriff's Office, serving King County and beyond.
It's got some pretty amazing capabilities that just make us safer. And so we're able to respond very quickly from the air to things that are in progress.
Things in progress, like stopping these 3 suspects, putting their violent crime spree to an end.
Guardian 1, we're overhead.
For the Spotlight, I'm Frankie Thompson.
The infamous chicken scam lady is facing a fresh set of criminal charges. Police say she has a long history of ripping off local businesses. She was recently caught in Tacoma. Jasmine Willie was arrested by Lakewood police in late November with a total of 4 felony warrants and 13 misdemeanor warrants. She's accused of a prolific scheme that often involves telling restaurant and grocery store employees that she spoke with their manager about receiving a refund, claiming she ordered a large amount of chicken for her church that turned out to be bad. She also claims she was treated poorly because of her race. None of that is true. We recently spoke with the owners of one restaurant that's been targeted 6 times.
I get a call, Haley, the chicken scammer's here. And I went, what? And they're like, the chicken scammer is outside. Look at the camera. She is like this urban legend almost. And so when you finally do see her in the flesh, it is so crazy because you've heard about her over and over and over again.
Willie was arrested back in 2021 for the same scheme, defrauding businesses across King, Pierce, and Thurston counties. After her latest arrest, she was charged with multiple counts of theft and organized retail theft. Her bail is set at $200,000. For the 3rd time in just 2 months, a band touring through the Seattle area had all of their gear stolen. This time, though, the equipment was recovered. Surveillance video from a SeaTac motel shows a thief smashing the back windshield of an SUV. That vehicle belongs to the electronic music duo Casablanca. The thief helped himself to about $52,000 worth of DJ gear. He wasn't working alone, though. Surveillance video from a different SeaTac motel shows several suspects working as a team to unload the stolen gear into a room. Police were also hard at work and had a strong lead. The band had air tags on their gear, and those GPS tracking devices led officers straight to the stash of stolen goods. This video shows police pulling into the motel's parking lot just as the thieves took off in a stolen car. Well, the suspects got away, but the motel cameras caught some clear images of them. Authorities were able to identify one of the suspects and issue a warrant for his arrest, and they're still searching for him. Because the thieves were forced to make a speedy getaway, they left all of Casablanca's stolen gear behind. Police say those AirTags were a huge help in the case. We spoke with a detective at SeaTac Police who has this advice for anyone using GPS tech to track their valuables.
Be able to quickly log into tracking devices, cameras, AirTags, find my iPhone from someone else's device. So know your passwords, your emails, and being able to get that to us quickly can help us help you.
Detective Michael Buss says with their stolen gear recovered, Casablanca was able to get back on the road. They performed a show in Portland, then returned to Seattle using their stolen equipment to perform at the Showbox. A local small business in West Seattle is facing a big setback just as it was getting off the ground. It's a landscaping service called Rowan's Roots, and they recently lost an extensive collection of tools. As the Spotlight's Nia Wong reports, those tools were stolen, along with the truck they named Meredith.
Taking root in May.
And we had been expanding all over the city.
Rowan's Roots has a small but mighty crew.
We really want to do the best by our clients.
The co-owners of this local landscaping business say they've desperately been searching for Meredith, a crucial member of the team.
Short mare. She's absolutely beautiful. She's got a black rack on top.
You're looking at head gardener Rowan O'Garvey on top of Meredith. A green 2001 F-250 Super Duty with gold trim and a chrome bumper.
You know, it was a real gut punch because it's just, we've put in so much work, like through the weekends, late into the nights.
O'Garvey believes she was stolen in Ballard right before the bomb cyclone.
This would have been a really good day to have both trucks and be able to just fill them up and get all of that debris out there.
O'Garvey says Meredith also had pricey power tools inside.
There's so many power tools, so many of these like custom extensions.
Co-owner and CEO Noah Keene says he has an emotional tie to Meredith.
It was our first big purchase, and we actually purchased purchased it with our own funds. Losing the truck as well as those tools was a bit disheartening.
Despite the setback,
even when things feel absolutely desolate and hopeless, we've still got a job to do.
Keene and O'Garvey say they're keeping up with as many appointments as they can and are grateful for their clients.
We are not shutting down. We're not letting this even slow us down if we can.
They've since started this GoFundMe to raise $17,000, which they estimate will help maintain their business until Meredith is found.
So if you happen to see that truck bouncing around, please let us know. We would love to have her back in our possession.
For the Spotlight, I'm Nia Wong.
Their GoFundMe has raised more than $5,000. If you'd like to help the business reach their fundraising goal, you can find a link in the online version of this story. Just search for Rowan's Roots at fox13seattle.com. That's going to do it for us tonight on The Spotlight. Remember, 'tis the season for thieving. So never leave your packages in your car and take extra care with your deliveries. Until next time, I'm David Rose. Please stay safe.